Entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. My name is Ashkan Karbasfrooshan, founder and CEO of WatchMojo, and in this interview series, we sit down and talk to the men and women who stand in the arena and discuss the struggles, setbacks, and eventual successes they experience as entrepreneurs. In my many years running WatchMojo, I've spent more time in New York than in any other city, making friends with some of the most talented hustlers and builders in town. While New York City growing to the capital of finance and media by the late 20th century, home to some of the world's largest corporations, the city has also served home to some of the greatest entrepreneurs the world's ever known. Indeed, in the 21st century, in the wake of back-to-back shocks to the financial world, Manhattan has seen a slow but steady shift back to its entrepreneurial roots, showcasing the vision, drive, execution, and persistence required to succeed. Unlike some of the other entrepreneurs I will be featuring, I'd actually never met Anthony Scaramucci before sitting down with him. Scaramucci burst onto the scene like a comet in a tumultuous 11-day stint as White House director in the summer of 2017. After graduating from Tufts and Harvard and a stint at Goldman Sachs, the Mooch went on to launch not one but two hedge funds, first Oscar Management and then Skybridge. I guess my first question, which will set a lot of the follow-up questions, is
this a good profile for me though, fellas? What's going on here?
You're good.
I just want to be on the record. There's no makeup.
No.
In the White House, I only did a few things right. I hired a hair and makeup stylist. These guys...
We saved on the hair budget.
The Ashkan here in the good, bad, and ugly. No hair and makeup. But let's go. All right, go ahead.
So I guess the first question I want to ask you is, if America was a stock, is it at an all-time high? Is it at a 52-week high? Is it in the toilet? Where is it?
Screaming by. Are you crazy? This is the most unbelievable country in so many different ways. You know what the greatest thing about the country is? Who cares who the politicians are? These guys set the thing up so brilliantly that it doesn't really matter. This is going to march forward with great technological advancement, medical advancement, infrastructure advancement. We're going to live in a world of abundance in 50 to 100 years. I may not see it. You'll probably see it. But it's unbelievable what's going on here. Now, one of the issues that we have, though, is that we've got to start to make sure that we restructure a little so that we keep an equal opportunity agenda. You're never going to get equal outcomes. Okay, you can't systematize that. You can't politicize that. There's no system in 5,500 years of history where you get an equal outcome. So if you got liberal millennials or Generation Z people, wake up. There's no equal outcomes. Okay, but there is an opportunity to create equal opportunity, and we have to do more of that. But this is an unbelievable buy.
Okay, so
country's a home run.
We're going to talk a lot about America.
Your family came here?
My family left Iran in '78, went to Canada, through Spain. We had it easy. My dad worked for the Spanish embassy, so a lot of the people had to come in harsher ways.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
I'm a Canadian citizen.
Canadian citizen.
Yeah.
But you like living here. You like living here in New York, right?
I love New York. I find USA is still the best country in the world.
It's the best.
It's the best. But Canada's probably the best country to live in because you don't have the extremes. So if you're fine with a little bit of the colder weather, and because you're close to the greatest country to kind of build a business and whatnot, it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Well, I mean, listen, I love the Canadian people. I mean, my first job coming out of school, I was at Goldman Sachs. I sold, I was on this team. I was a junior person on the team, but we sold the Cadillac Fairview shopping malls. So I spent a year in Canada. I was in Montreal, Toronto. I've been to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Regina, Saskatchewan. So I know the country, and it's a phenomenal country. But the one problem between the United States and Canada, not a problem between the countries, but the way you analyze these countries, is this country, the United States, became a superpower after the end of the Second World War. And so we made a decision, and it was a benevolent decision, to engage in the global community and to build the infrastructure for peace in our civilization. And so we built up a lot of acronyms. There was WTO, the UN, UNESCO, all of these great world organizations, the World Court, and we built this infrastructure of peace for a prosperous society. And we were a great beneficiary of being most superpowers in the modern world are island superpowers. We are an island continent. Just look at the map. Okay, so we had this unbelievable resources, this great footprint, and we were the last standing industrialized country. So we set it up in a way that was very non-traditional. We spent infrastructure money outside the U.S. with the Marshall Plan, and then we unevened the trade deals around the world. Okay, we said, okay, we'll accept goods and services flowing freely into the U.S., but our goods and services are going to be embargoed because we need to benefit mankind by creating a global middle class and economic interdependency in the system. 71, 72 years later, it's been a phenomenal success. The Canadians, by the way, have contributed. They've contributed militarily. They've always put their forces and troops on the ground where we've asked them for help. But they didn't bear that burden, okay, of building that system for the world. And so now that system's changing. It has to be re-architected again.
So you basically touch on the theme of exporting peace, which I definitely want to get into. But let's just go back. You mentioned being at Goldman. Before that, you were at Harvard, and you've been at the White House. Those are three of the top institutions. What's the one trait you think that you need to get into those organizations?
Well, the top institution that I came from was a mental institution. It was 72 Webster Avenue. Okay, that was the house that I grew up in and my parents still live in. Okay, that was the top institution. Okay, I beat every one of those houses and every one of those schools. Okay. But what's the question?
What's the one trait, skill set, the one thing you need to get into those? Like, is it intelligence? Is it persistence? Is it luck? Is it you got to know the right people?
Hey, let me tell you something. You know, I can give you all the cliches in the world. You got to go forward, man. You got to go forward. My life is so improbable, and so many weird twists and turns have happened to me. But let me tell you something. When I hit the ground, you got to make a decision. You made out of China? You made out of glass? Or you a rubber ball? Me, I'm a rubber Super Bowl. I'm gonna hit the ground. Don't expect me to stay on the ground too long. Okay, so that's the number one thing. It's not what happens to you in life, Ash. It's what you do with what happens to you in life. Okay, so I'm getting bounced from the White House. I'm fired. I'm humiliated. 45 major newspapers, nonstop repetition on all the news media. You know, it was brutal. Okay, and I said a couple curse words, so I guess it was like, I don't know. You admitted off camera that have you said a few curse words in your life?
For sure.
A couple, right? I know. Maybe your viewers have never said curse words. If you've never said a curse word, you know, direct message me on Twitter or LinkedIn, okay? I'd like to meet you. But I said a few curse words. I was caught on a recorded phone line by a nefarious reporter. And so Kelly used that to fire me. That's cool. It's his right. I never complained about it. Talked very well about him. But I'm walking out now. It's a week later. I'm on the 4th Street or 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica. My 25-year-old son, who worked for Google, is now with Peter Diamandis, is going to Stanford Business School in September. He's got his arm around me. And he says, hey, Pops, are you okay? Pops, are you okay? I said, AJ, not only am I okay, watch what I do with this. It's going to be a learning lesson for you that no matter what happens, okay, they want to roll me in broken glass, they want to say mean and nasty things about me. Who cares? I don't have cancer. I'm living an unbelievable life. Read Viktor Frankl's book, Man and the Search for Meaning of Life. This guy had to walk out of concentration camp. They took the fillings out of his teeth. And he came to the United States and built himself up from nothing. And so refresh your attitude, refresh your optimism, refresh your passion in your life, and don't take it too seriously. You know, Mel Brooks has an amazing line. You want to hear it? Relax, Ash. None of us are getting out of here alive. Okay, you ever hear that line before?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, that's it. Run it that way. And live your life without fear.
You mentioned the
nefarious... Live your life without fear. There's no reason to have fear.
You mentioned the nefarious journalist and that. Was that a cry for help? Did you want out because once you got in, you realized just how cancerous the vibe was?
It's interesting. A lot of people said that to me, that was a cry for help. That was actually the very opposite of a cry for help. That was me. Somebody said to me the other day that I'm politically naive. I was like, that's completely wrong. I'm politically naive to the 10th power. I'm exponentially politically naive. Okay? I picked up the phone. This was Frank Liz's son. He knew my father for 50 years. He grew up in the same neighborhood as me. He was an Italian kid. I picked the phone to call him to ask him, how did the private dinner get leaked? Okay, and I didn't need his sources. I just wanted to feel him out. And we were joking on the phone with each other. You can listen to the tape. He wrote it up like I was like some kind of unhinged lunatic and blah, blah, blah. I mean, all this nonsense. Listen to the tape. He recorded it. We flushed out the tape. Chris Cuomo looked at him and said, dude, it's not what you wrote. You wrote it like it was salaciously unhinged. The guy was talking to you regular, neighborhoody, definitely a little bit of profanity in there. I mean, I told a little bit of fake news about Steve Bannon. I mean, there's no way he could do what I said, but I mean, other than that.
That would be impressive if you could do that.
But it was very evaluative of what these people are like. I know how to evaluate talent. I've started from scratch 2 businesses. So that was very far from a cry for help. That was help in the opposite way. I had built a 9-page comms plan. I understood the president's personality. I knew we had to clean out the cultural misfits inside the room. They're only caring about themselves. The number one thing you got to do when you're starting up, you got to create the right culture. And what Priebus did is he created the absolute wrong culture. He was a very paranoid guy, very, very insecure. And the way you get power in life, Ash, is you got to give it away. It's the only way you can get power. Okay, I ran Skybridge, I hosted Wall Street Week, I ran the SALT conference, I had a podcast, I was on the president's executive transition team, and I was fundraising for the president, and I was one of his top media surrogates during the transition. There's no way you can do all those things. You got to delegate, give power away, and you got to hold people accountable for it, and you got to have enough self-confidence that the people around you are not going to bag you. Right? If you've got insecurity in your personality and you're underconfident, it always equals paranoia and backstabbing. So that's a human equation of psychology you can take to the bank. So if you're running a company and you're listening to this program, identify the people that are backstabbing each other in your room, get them in a closet, get them in a conference room and say, okay, listen, you're a backstabber and you're a little paranoid. Can you calm yourself down? If you cannot calm yourself down, I got to get rid of you. But you know what? You're very talented. Okay, and Priebus is actually a very organized guy, disciplined guy. I thought he did a good job at the RNC. I liked him. I thought he was a friend of mine until he started his sinister, slithering nonsense that they do in the swamp. You see what I'm saying?
No, totally.
So
okay,
no,
so
it wasn't a cry for help. It was like, dude, I'm here. I'm going to help fix this for the president. We're going to knock off the nonsense. Okay, we're going to work together. No one's ever worked for me. Everyone's always worked with me. Let's form a collaboration and an esprit de corps, and let's win as a team.
Now, there's that picture of you and him standing.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal took that picture. It's a cowboy shot.
What the cowboy shot? What's going through your mind, and what's going through his mind at that moment?
Well, you know, I've looked at the picture. That was an accidental picture. I was really trying to figure out at that moment if there was some move on the Rubik's Cube where I could get the patterns to line up properly, and him and I could figure out a way to get along. But he was leaking on me. It's like so funny. I mean, like these guys, they didn't want me in the job, so they were blasting me the night before. The president puts me in the job. They start the process of blasting me that weekend. That picture was taken after the weekend, and you know they're leaking on me left and right. And I was like, okay, these guys are like ridiculous. Okay, they're supposed to be my friends. He fronts up like you're old enough to remember Richie Cunningham. You know the genial guy from Happy Days with the Fonz. The guy fronts up like Richie Cunningham, but he's really like a Sith Lord. You know, he's a backstabbing Sith Lord with like a red lightsaber, right? So that's what they do to you, right? They come ha ha ha, and then when you're not looking, they try to hit you from behind. Okay, what are you guys doing this for? Why do we need to do that? This is what the American people don't like. Okay, let's stop doing this, right? So that look was, okay, do I have to knock this guy into Pennsylvania Avenue because I'm prepared to knock him into Pennsylvania Avenue, or is he going to knock it off? What is he going to do here? Okay, because he's the number one leaker in the White House. I showed the president how he was leaking.
How was he leaking? Take us through
I did a whole Carrie Matheson. You watch Homeland?
No.
Okay, but your friends do. So what happens is she's looking at the terrorists and she's analyzing. She's got the big wall.
Do you assume I watched that because I'm from Iran? No, I'm kidding. Go on.
Well, I don't know. You probably should watch it because you're from Iran, right? That's probably going to be a bad moment for me now, right? That was probably politically incorrect.
It's all good.
All right, but I showed. So when he would use the president's name, he would leak through the Washington Examiner. He would say, Trump hates Ash. And then you'd get like a Google alert on your phone. You're like, oh, wow, God, Trump hates me. I thought I had a great relationship with Trump. That was Priebus doing that to you with Spicer and a couple other guys, some of his cutouts, because he wanted to keep you from the White House, or he wanted to destabilize what he thought was a strong relationship between you and Trump, right? So he used the Washington Examiner. Why? Hope never cut that out for the president. The president didn't read that. The president was more focused on things like the New York Post and the New York Times, right? He didn't think I got to read the Washington Examiner. So I always used the president's name in the Washington Examiner. When he was leaking on Gary, he would go to the Wall Street Journal because, you know, that would be the maximum damage to Gary. He had 2 or 3 cutouts there, and we used them. Bannon loved the Wall Street Journal.
But how did you figure out it was him? What was your...
You don't have to be like a rocket scientist.
It was more by...
So I just figured, okay, look, he hates these guys. These are the journalists he's tight with. Here are the cutouts that he's using. I mean, they had a massive leak on me. They were trying to go to political with me. My original job was to be the OPL director. Now, I know I look like I was born at night, but it wasn't last night, right? So I said, okay, you're going to make me the OPL director. I was already smelling some bad nonsense. So I asked Rick Durborn, the head of the transition team, to give me a letter an offer and acceptance letter. Now I got the offer and acceptance letter, right? So now they're doing their opposition research and all their nonsense on me to block me from getting in. And then they're leaking that they never offered me the job in the first place. There was never a press release on me. That was one of Priebus's tricks. So I took the letter and I sent it to Liar Spice from the Spice Girls, right? Every Spice Girl's got a nickname. So I sent the letter to Liar Spice, and I said, Liar Spice, you can't lie about this. I have documented evidence on this. So you're going to have to switch the story with Politico. Okay? But even after that, I still protected Liar Spice when he was out there making the Hitler comments and all the stupid stuff. I went on Aaron Burnett's show and said he shouldn't lose his job over that. He was trying. He was just over his head, you know.
So you were brought in to kind of kill the leaks, but isn't leaks a part, like a necessary evil in these organizations?
The bad leaks. Let's define leaks. There's a lot of different types of leaks. If you go throughout human history, political leaking is a normal practice. You're leaking to test an idea. You're leaking to test a personnel decision. You're leaking to build a bridge and a relationship with the journalist. You may need them in a crisis. There's a lot of positives and a lot of positive externality for leaking. Bad leaking is Ash is a drunk, Ash has a girlfriend, Ash is a globalist, Dimwit is a nationalist, okay? That is like bad leaking. You know, Scaramucci's got a nefarious deal with the Chinese, bad leaking. You see what I mean? Fake news and bad leaking and very dishonest. Like, they pulled a stunt on me this week. I don't know when this thing's gonna go live, but they denied my access to the White House. I was supposed to go down there to see somebody. Access denied by General Kelly. Well, let's call him John Kelly because he's no longer a general. And then his team, they thought, okay, we're going to show Scaramucci. We're going to deny him his access. Okay, that'll be humiliating to him, and it will put him in his place. Okay, hey, fellas, I've worked on this thing for 2.5 years. I gave hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm very loyal to the president. I still consider the president, I'm not going to say we're friends, but we got a close enough relationship where he hired me. Okay, and we do talk. So what do you guys want to do? You want to turn a good ally of the president's into an adversary? What do you guys want to do? I said, this guy's blocking my access from the White House. His boys or girls said that they weren't. So I got the guy to take a screenshot of access denied Anthony Scaramucci with the date, and I sent it to the reporter. Stop it, guys. Let's knock off the lying. Let's knock off the disingenuous dishonesty. Let's stop it. Now, all the stuff that I'm saying to you is very dangerous because people don't like the truth. They don't like to hear the truth, and they like to take out people that speak the truth. You know, you remember A Few Good Men. But let me tell you something. We're at a point, you want to talk about an inflection point in our society. We have this unbelievable, amazing society, but we got to fix the government. You can't rack up $30-40 trillion of debt. You'll dig too big of a hole. You'll stay rich. I'll be fine. My kids will be fine. But you're going to hurt the middle class and the lower middle class families that I came from. Okay, you're going to reduce their standard of living if you continue to operate the government off of this ridiculous policy. And that's why the president got elected. So why don't we knock it off? Let's have a little bit more transparency and honesty between each other. You don't have to like me. I don't have to like you, but we're wearing the same jersey. The 77 Yankees, you're not old enough to remember them, but they were killing each other. Okay, Sparky Lyle wrote a book called The Bronx Zoo. They were killing each other. But when they got on the field, they're wearing the same jersey and they won the World Series. So you don't have to like me. I'm halfway decent at what I'm capable of, and so are you. Let's get in the boat together, row in the same direction. Let's knock off the internecine warfare.
If the election were held today, does Trump win?
By a landslide.
So you think he's going to win
2020?
2020?
The 2020 election is held today. He wins by a landslide. If the
I actually
election,
agree with you.
Oh, no,
I called 2016 a year before it happened.
Trump
I said he was going to win. But why do you think he's going to win?
Well, because there are 3 or 4 reasons. Number one, there's, I mean, no offense to these guys, and I said this to Donna Brazil on Bill Maher's show. Who do you got? Show me the guy. Show me the woman. Tell me the person. If you watch Jesse Waters, I did a whole scouting report for him. It's going to be 8 o'clock on Saturday night. I have a whole scouting report. Tell me the guy, or the man or woman that's going to beat him. This guy is a beast, okay? He is a superstar. You may not like him. You may not like his mannerisms, his style, his tweeting, but this guy is a beast, okay? He gets it, and he knows how to get the job done, and let me tell you something. He hits it harder than anybody. This guy plays like an underdog all day. You want to learn from Trump? It's 21-7. You're late in the third quarter, and he's going to win. He's going to take the ball. He's going to drive it downfield. And people don't like me for saying that stuff about him, but he's not a choke artist. Okay, so he wins by a landslide today. In 2020, he wins by a landslide. The mechanical reasons for that are you are in a rising economy. Since 1880 to today, you don't lose the presidency in a rising economy. It's never happened. So the only time it did happen was unusual. There was an assassination of a president, and there was a very bad war going on and a tremendous amount of civil protests. And so the sitting president in a rising economy left the race. He was really worried about Bobby Kennedy, LBJ. It's the only time that did happen. Very different exogenous circumstance.
Actually, I agree.
So he wins.
Curious what you think.
You got him for another 7 years, so get used to him.
But
let's get the right team around him so that we can really do a good job for the American people.
Speaking of the team, so this week, Ivanka Trump says, you can't ask me as the daughter about whether or not like the sex stuff is accurate. It's not a fair question or whatever. Mm-hmm. 2 days before that, she's in Korea and she's like, I'm basically an advisor, and she's an advisor. Is that going to last, or at some point are Jared and Ivanka and the whole family? Is the nepotism going to continue?
So look, I don't know the answer to that, but I find this thing like a little laughable about the quote unquote nepotism. Okay, Bobby Kennedy was the Attorney General. He was in the cabinet. Okay, so the fact that the president wants a few of his family members around him as official advisors is less hypocritical than having George Walker Bush advising George Herbert Walker Bush throughout the presidency, working on the election campaign and so forth. It's just hypocritical. There are many instances. Abigail Adams. You could go back through our history. So there's been Edith Wilson. There's been levels of nepotism in our government forever. Okay, so people cry nepotism. They should take a step back, say, okay, relax for a second. The First Lady's not an elected official. She has a very integral part in the government. The Second Lady's not a government official. And so there's always a family component to these things. There has to be. Look at the stress that these people are under. So give the guy a break on that. As it relates to the two of them as governmental officials, I don't know the answer to that, but my guess is probably not. Because if you look at duration cycle of governmental officials underneath the president, they typically grind out in 2 to 3 years.
Do you feel like Trump winning ultimately was just confirmation that in America, celebrity and wealth is what Americans look up to? Like, they didn't elect him because of his business acumen. They elected him because of, like, The Apprentice, like that kind of role.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think that they elected him because, remember, the rise of Trumpism is concomitant to the decline of Clintonism, okay? I mean, you could have flipped coins and made better decisions than those guys. I mean, I will never understand why they didn't go to Wisconsin. She only lost the state by, I don't know, you have to Google this, I don't know the exact number, but is it 40, 50,000 votes? She lost the state of Wisconsin. Her aides told her, you got that in the bag. But let me submit to you, if you got the Speaker of the House as a Republican from Wisconsin, and you got Governor Scott Walker that's won 3 elections in 4 years in Wisconsin, don't you think you should show up? Her decline or her terrible candidacy, and by the way, I like her as a person. You'll never hear me say anything bad about her. I'm just analyzing the strategy of the campaign. They outspent us and they manned us, or womaned us, and they still beat us. We still beat them. So to me, I think Trump won for a number of different factors. Her weakness as a candidate and her bad strategy, his persistence, his persona, and I do think, you may not agree with this, but I think the American people looked at him and said, okay, I don't know what he's worth. He says he's worth $10 billion. We can take him at his word, but he's definitely worth a lot more than me.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's a rich guy by the standards of America, and so people view him as a success. And they also smell that their government is failing. They smell that there's something wrong with the system, and they're hoping to get somebody from outside the system. One of his best campaign lines was, listen, I get the system. I played the system. I gave money to Schumer, I gave money to Clinton, I gave money to D'Amato. I played the system. Let me get in there. Let me see if I can fix the system. So I think that was the compelling narrative that brought him to the presidency.
Is there a degree of hypocrisy amongst Americans, and especially, let's say, the Democrats, when they're kind of crying foul over Russia, when America has a history of meddling in other countries' elections?
Okay, so there's not just a degree of hypocrisy among politicians, there's a degree of hypocrisy among everybody. Everybody's a hypocrite in some way, shape, or form. You have said something, I don't know, we're going to analyze you, but you've said something 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, you're doing the exact opposite of that. I've done it. I'm a hypocrite.
But there's a difference if you change your point of view because conditions change. I mean, don't you find Trump is just lying all the time? Like, there's a hypocrisy of those whining about Russia, but I mean, with Trump, the degree of lying, like, how could anybody work for him?
Read Win Bigly by Scott Adams. He's the creator of Dilbert. And so he has a very interesting take on Trump's persuasion skills He has a very interesting take on Trump's vernacular. Okay, he's a showman, and so he's a storyteller, and so he mixes in this story some levels of fabrication. The average student of politics, the average person that's analyzing presidential nature and presidential personality doesn't like it. The average American that's watched television and has seen him on TV and has seen the screenplay unfold finds it amusing. So we're in a new territory. Okay, you're in a situation now where you have the first smash mouth, shock jock president. If Barack Obama was the Jackie Robinson of the American presidency, he broke the color barrier. Donald Trump is the Howard Stern. Okay, so let me just finish. So a guy like me, I get the joke. My button's bigger than your button. I'm laughing. I mean, he says some stuff that's really funny, and he will stretch a story. You know, there's a great cliche. Why let the truth get in the way of a great story? Okay, Trump is a great storyteller, and so if you're legitimizing, so while he's the president of the United States, every word that comes out of his mouth, I learned that George Washington never told a lie, even told his daddy chopped down the cherry tree. Let me take him at his word. He's a prolific liar. The guys like me, we don't see him like that. We see him as a colorful guy who says colorful things. But when you get down to brass tacks, you're sitting at a table like this, you're a very good decision maker. Very good decision
Best
maker.
decision you've seen him make. Whether in the 11 days
Pence.
you were there.
Pence. I think that was a great pick for him. I think Pence complimentary, and he compliments him with an E, meaning he's a complimentary personality, and he compliments him with an I, where he gets the president. He's a loyal guy. Pence has got a great staff, no drama on the staff. I think it was a great decision by the president.
You touch on loyalty. How jarring and frustrating is it to have worked for someone who commands so much loyalty but seems to give it back so little? You don't count him as a loyal person, do you?
I count him as someone that likes loyalty. There's been some asymmetric behavior as it relates to his loyalty, but there's also another weird thing that goes on with him, right? No one's ever out of his orbit, right? You ready? I mean, your viewers can't see it, but I'll draw it for you. The orbit is not a circle; it's an ellipse. Okay, and so what happens is I was in this orbit, closer here, and now I'm out here. You see what I mean? But you never leave the orbit, right? You see what I mean? So if you get the joke with him, he gets the joke with you. You see what I mean? I'm loyal to the guy because he's a good guy. He's trying to do the right thing. He fired me for a reason. I got fired because I was the White House communications director and I got bagged by a journalist. I should have been smarter than that. I should have not had that happen to me. Now, you could have given me a pass on that. Okay, you could have said, all right, the guy's a good guy. He backed me during the Access Hollywood tape. He sponsored a breakfast right after that. He's really trying to help me. I'm going to give him a pass. He's got a 9-page comms plan that's really going to help the country. Let's move forward. It's just a news cycle. But they didn't do that. They created a spectacle about it. They made me as famous as Melania and Ivanka. I didn't have to be his wife or his daughter. So here we are.
Less painful in many ways.
Sometimes. But my point is, I'm not going to lose my friendship with him over politics. See the difference?
No, I do. I think that's fair.
No big deal.
Do you think that the whole investigation what is the odds of impeachment?
It's a joke. The investigation is a joke. The problem with the investigation is that these things go haywire, right? It's like shooting a pinball and they're bouncing off the bumpers and the lights are blinking and it's like a total joke, okay? Condi said today, Secretary Rice, let's stop and let's knock off the Russian investigation. You got 15 months into it, you haven't found anything. The country's ready to move on. That's what she said this morning. So let's knock it off. There's nothing there. I said there was nothing there 15 months ago. But here's what happens. You start on Whitewater, your name is Ken Starr, and you're working on Hillary and Bill Clinton, and you end up with the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Okay, and so if you wait long enough, you look pretty good. God makes the bald heads perfect. You know that, right, Ash? You look pretty good. You probably are a perfect person, okay? But you're talking to an imperfect person, okay? But maybe you're perfect. I'm not perfect. You dig hard enough, you dig long enough, you're going to find something about me you don't like. You're going to find a misstep. You're going to find a indiscretion. I'm a flawed guy. In business, I've made 10 phone books of flaws. In the White House, I made 5 phone books of them in 11 days. Okay, I'm a flawed guy making mistakes all the time. So the pinball's bouncing around now in Washington. The pinball machine is called Scandals Incorporated. They played a machine on Hillary Clinton. They would say, oh my God, uranium 1, 33,000 emails. Let's hit President Hillary Clinton. The pinball will bounce around in there. She didn't win, and they're dialing off her. He's upset. He said, stop hitting me. I'm going to start hitting her. Right? And that's what happens to you. You become the swamp because the swamp is the swamp. The swamp laughs at you. They laugh at you. They say, oh, here he comes. Mr. Naivete to the 10th power. Let's slow down his deal and Siphius. Let's disrupt his family. Let's put a negative opposition research out on him. Let's give him a run for his money. We're going to be here for 30 years. This guy's coming in for 10 minutes. He's going to be in this president's term 1 day, 11 days for me, maybe a year. Let's drive him crazy. Let's teach him what the swamp is all about. Swamp. If you let yourself, you become the swamp.
Compare the dynamics.
American people don't like it, bro. You got millennial kids. How old are you?
I'm 39. My kids are 9 and 7.
All right, so you got young kids. So I got millennial kids, and I got Generation Zers. They don't like it. They don't like it. They see through it. They don't like it. And also the proliferation, if I said that word right, of social media has got a spotlight on these people. Like, whoa, is it really like this? What's wrong with you people? Why don't you knock it off? They don't like it.
With the shooting that happened in Florida, do you think that the reaction against the students will, as those kids get older and get the right to vote, is that going to come back and haunt the Republicans?
I don't know. It's a good question, though. So what you say to yourself is, it's we should be able to solve for this issue. Okay, I really wish at times like this that we stop with the left and right nonsense and we go to right and wrong. Okay, and so right or wrong is a post-partisan analytics. Left or right is the nonsensical drama that we have right now. And so, to me, I'm absolutely confident that there's smart enough, nonpartisan enough people in the country where we could hit the intersection point of non-crazy people can have use for guns for recreational or protective purposes, self-defense, and crazy people can't get anywhere near a gun. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're a liberal watching this and you want to poke out one of my eyes, I'm sorry to tell you this is always going to be a Second Amendment. But the thing got started with a Second Amendment. It had to do with what the British forces did in New Hampshire and Massachusetts by taking the garrison's munitions away, and it paralyzed those people. There was no tax. There was no representation on taxation, and they took their guns and munitions away, and so then they could be oppressed. And so they understood intuitively that you needed to have the ability to arm yourself, to protect yourself, not only against enemies, but potential governmental oppression. It's been steeped in the culture of the United States. That tea bag is in the culture of the United States for 242 years, 43 years. It's not going away. So you may not like it, but you're not going to regulate or litigate or legislate the guns out of existence in the United States. What you have to do is you got to tighten the background checks, you got to reduce the magazines, you got to reduce the impact of the bullets, so at least the volume of the bullets out there that are super harmful or less harmful. You got to set up devices. You know, you're a technologist. There's great devices we can put in these schools. You should not arm these teachers.
That's crazy.
That's a really bad idea. I would tell the president if I was sitting next to him, I'd say, well, let's relax on arming the teachers. I know you're on missile lock with the arming the teachers, but don't arm the teachers because the gun is going to go off when you least expect it and you don't want it. And if you've got 45, 50,000 schools or whatever the number is, I don't know the number, but you've had 1,400 people die since Columbine. Let's say you got 100,000 schools. I don't want 100,000 schools, many of which are very safe, to statistically have an increase in the potential acts of violence as a result of exposure to arms. So we can figure that out. We're smart. We can figure that out, but we got to figure it out in a right or wrong way as opposed to left or right. And everybody at the table's got to be unhappy. The left's got to be unhappy because there's some freedom around the guns, and the right's got to be unhappy because we can't put an orange ball size blowout into an innocent kid's body. I'm sorry. Okay, that's not what we should be doing to people. Okay, a nut gets a gun and they shoot an orange ball size hole in your son's body. I don't want that. Okay, I got 5 kids. Let's knock that off. Okay, we should be able to solve that.
Why is it that after this most recent shooting there seems to be a little bit of traction, but why is it also that there's never any action in the end and we just forget and move on?
Because that's what they do to you. They grind you down. They slow roll you. The move in the swamp is the slow roll move. You want to hear the slow roll move? Okay, there's heat right now. But in 2 days, the news cycle will be over. There's a great website called Last Week's News or Last Week News from 2 weeks ago. And like you go on that website and you oh wow, yeah, that was a catastrophe 2 weeks ago. But now we're here 2 weeks later, we don't even thinking about that. There's another catastrophe. So they grind you, they slow roll you. And so that's the question you asked me about the kids. I don't know the answer. Those kids are really that fired up and they are that persistent and they can create a movement on March 24th that galvanizes the youth. The product will change. The product is a politician. The product will change. You want to change the system? Force everybody to vote like they do in Australia. All of a sudden the product has to become less extreme. If I only like bitter coffee and you only like super sweet coffee, okay, but now I can only serve one coffee to both sides, the coffee's going to be a little bitter and a little sweet. It's not going to be one side and the other side. You make everybody vote, you liquidate and dilute the product. You see what I mean? And then you have less polemics, you have less of this nonsense that we're dealing with.
Compare for me DC with Wall Street, because you have a unique take on this.
Yeah, I mean, I said it. I mean, the worst guy of 54, the worst guy, I mean, I got him right in my brain, right here, right inside my melon, the worst guy I've ever met in my life.
You want to name names?
On Wall Street. I'm not going to name names. They know who they are. Okay? And one of them apologized to me, so I'm over him. But the other guy, I mean, just a terrible human being. He's the Eagle Scout. Okay? He is the pillar of rectitude and ethics in Washington. Wall Street is such a cooler place. Okay, we got tough guys, we got ruthless guys. You're going to poke my eye out for $1. But at the end of the day, we're transacting, right? So here's what I say about Wall Street. Wall Street, there's a game going on. And we're both on the green team. Here's the green, it's money. I'm going to sell you the building. You're looking at the building, you're going to improve the quality of the rent roll, you're going to make money off of me. I'm going to make money off of you because I'm getting a net present value off my current cash flow. We're going to transact. You may take my eyeball out while I'm doing it, and I may hate you when I'm done, but at least we've got some harmony in the transaction. In Washington, there's no green team. These guys are nuts. I got to get closer to the president. This guy may be close to the president. Oh my God, I feel so powerful. I don't want this guy to get any of my power. They take like this little pill, okay? Like it's the Lord Acton pill, okay? They put it in. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. These people are nuts. That's why the founders put in the fourth estate. That's why the first move I made was to turn the lights on in the press room. You got to have people that are in power held accountable to their power by the fourth estate. You want to protect the country's democracy. You want to protect the country from tyranny. We got to have a relationship with the press. They may not like me. I may not like them, but we can't be declaring war on them. Okay, that's part of the original documents. That's part of the foundation of the country. So my first move is let's turn the lights back.
I mean,
turn the camera back on.
Where do you see this going? It seems like every week seems to be the most chaotic week of the Trump presidency. I mean, at some point does this stabilize?
So here's what everybody's missing, okay? Here's what everybody's missing. You're an entrepreneur, right? You started this business?
Yes.
Did you have high turnover in the beginning, or you nailed everybody perfectly?
Very loyal, very
from
little
day
turnover.
One.
Yeah.
Okay, Mazel tov. I'm going to shake this guy's head. That's fantastic, okay?
Which is rare, I understand.
It's, okay, you hear what he said? He said it's rare. Did you hear him say that? Okay, Ash, thank you for the honesty. Me, I've started 2 businesses. I had a meat grinder going, okay, and I had a revolving door going for about 2 years until I got the culture and I got the people right. And then I've had permanent employees. So my business is 13 years old. I would say the last 8 to 9 years, I've got the same team. I've feathered the team with more people as we've grown, but the first 2.5 years, I was whipping through people because I couldn't get the culture right. I couldn't get the dynamics right in the room the way I wanted them. And that's what entrepreneurs do. And so I am not surprised at all that you have this level of turnover. And I will also tell you I'm not surprised that I'm a casualty of it. If you're hiring a 4-star military general, he's going to shoot me right in the forehead. Why wouldn't he? I mean, I'm an iconoclastic entrepreneur, very unstructured. In his mind, I have to be undisciplined. Right? What do you need a headache like me standing around? So I didn't blame him for firing me. It was fine.
Is John Kelly going to survive?
I don't know. That'll be up to the president. I've obviously shared my opinion, but that'll be up to the president.
So when did you realize that you were going to be asked to leave?
Well, I felt a change over that weekend. I think I mentioned that in the Vanity Fair article. I felt like, okay, on Saturday, people were like, okay, well, Anthony is working on behalf of the president, and the president means business. They're ready to clean this place out. And here's the great thing about life, okay? Everybody knows who the liars and leakers are. You don't think the journalists knew that Bannon and Priebus were the biggest leakers in the White House? They knew. So I go, oh, wow, this is actually going to change you. This is going to get a lot better. When they brought in Kelly, I was like, okay, let me get on the phone with him. I don't know him. I met him at Steve Mnuchin's wedding. Apparently, he had an instant dislike for me. He told a number of journalists. He met me for 3 minutes at Steve Mnuchin's wedding, but I wasn't his cup of tea. That's fine. He's entitled to his opinion. And so I tried to get his phone number. I couldn't get access to him. I left a message for him on the White House switchboard to talk to me. I wanted to send him my comms plan that I had worked on. And obviously, I apologized to Vice President Pence and President Trump and Melania and Ivanka for the words that I used, and I got caught on the tape and made a mistake. Okay. And so he didn't call me back. And then by Sunday night, I said, okay, the chief of staff's not calling me back, and I'm the comms director in the White House, and there's a little bit of a tussle going on, I'm probably going to lose my job. So by like 7 or 8 o'clock on Sunday night, I'm like, okay, if I can make it through Monday, I'll have my job. If I can't make it through Monday morning, it's probably over. When I landed back in Washington, I took the Delta shuttle. I turned on my White House phone, and it didn't work. And then Nick Ayers, the chief of staff for the vice president, was calling me on my regular phone. He's like, Mooch, turn on the White House phone. We got to talk to you, but it's got to be on a secure line. And so I was like, well, I'm going to be at the White House in a few minutes. Why don't I just meet the vice president in his office? Okay, come over to the office. And then I knew I was dead then because they deactivated the phone. That's like a military move.
Yeah.
And Trump and I are too sloppy for that, right? We would have left the phone on all day. That's fine.
So initially you were
I got fired at 9:37, but I knew by 7 o'clock I was dead.
Initially you were a bit off the radar. You kind of went incognito. And then in the past few weeks you've been doing a bit more press. Why?
Well, I went off the radar because I thought that was fair and appropriate as a good sport. I got fired. There was no reason for me to be gristing about it or whining about it. I hope this interview doesn't come across as me whining about it. I'm accountable for the mistake that I made, and unfortunately I've had to fire people as an entrepreneur, and I have been fired, and it's painful on both sides. And so I wanted to leave space for General Kelly to execute a game plan for his staff and for the White House. When Steve Bannon wrote the book Liar and Furious, that some people call Fire and Fury, but I call it Liar and Furious because you got Liar, Michael Wolff, and Furious, Steve Bannon, Adolf. They wrote a book, basically a fictional book that they put in the non-fictional category. The president issued a statement. You may have saw the statement, and when you looked at the statement, it was like, oh, that's Anthony's statement without the curse words. And then Donnie Jr. is a good friend of mine. He retweeted what I said. I basically said exactly what the president said without the expletives about this, this dude. And then, the president and I had a conversation, and then the president encouraged me to go back on the air to present the case of what was wrong in that system and why the guy was let go. The president called him a leaker. The president said he was very dishonest. The president said that he was all about his own brand. The president accused him of aiding and abetting the failure of that Senate seat. You had the Republicans controlling the Senate seats in Alabama for 30 plus years. Sloppy Steve lost the Senate seat. And so...
Was it Steve's fault, or was it the fact that the guy had a baggage and...
No, hold on. The president and Mitch McConnell wanted Big Luther, okay? Big Luther was a little bit of a nut job, pretty far to the right for a guy like me, but he wasn't the other guy. He wasn't the lunatic fringe, okay? And so once you went full lunatic, full Monty, once you go full lunatic, people look around and say, okay, I don't want full lunatic. I'll take halfway lunatic, The president went to campaign for the guy that lost. Bannon was out there orchestrating the guy that won. Okay, what happens in these primaries is the extremists vote in the primaries, and so you got an extreme candidate. So that was a disaster. If he was a team player, he would have dialed into what the president wanted. If he was a team player, he wouldn't have broke from the president on the decision on Afghanistan. Have you been to Afghanistan?
No.
Okay, well, I've been to Afghanistan. I don't know anybody that's gone to Afghanistan and examined the situation on the ground there that doesn't think we need more troops there and not less troops. Maybe Susan Rice. but that's it. So.
You talked early on about this whole exporting peace theme, but the U.S. now has been at war, even before 9/11. Is this going to drag on, in your opinion?
So when I talk about exporting peace, I'm talking about a global conflict. I'm talking about, if you look at Europe, from Charlemagne to Napoleon, they fought it out every decade for 1,000 years. Von Metternich put a peace plan together that dialed back the hostility. You had a war in 1848, and then you had the big one in 1914. You got the peace treaty completely wrong after Versailles. We're still fighting in some ways World War I because of the way the Middle East got set up. You know that because you're from that area. And so now World War II starts, and the United States says, okay, everything we did wrong, Versailles, the treaty, the way we treated the vanquished, we're going to do it the exact opposite. And that was a big learning lesson for everybody. And so we set up a new world order and fostered peace where we don't have a global conflict. But what we do have, because of the specter and the rise of the military-industrial complex, which Eisenhower warned us about in his farewell address, is that we have these proxy wars. We're fighting proxy wars. We fought a proxy war in Korea to an armistice. We fought a proxy war in Vietnam, which we lost. We fought the first Gulf War. We fought the second Gulf War, which we're still fighting 17 plus years later. And so in the last 50 years, we've more or less been in conflict for like 48 of the last 50 years. So, but I'm talking about global peace. I'm not talking about proxy wars where the Russians are trying to have at it with us with Savimbi in Africa, or the Contras and the Sandinistas are fighting in Central America. I'm talking about a real full-blown, we got 50 large countries, industrialized countries, trying to demolish each other. And so we've done that. You know, you have to give the United States credit for that. And it's not just the United States, it's the Europeans, it's the Japanese, it's the strength of the Allies, it's the G8, which became the G20. Most of the systems in the globe have by and large worked, but that centralization idea hurts the common worker. It hurts the kid in Manchester, UK. It hurts the kid in Davenport, Iowa. And so the president's message is we got to help those people, and we still have to stay in the system. So there's a duality to the president's message.
Do you believe that he actually has a coherent plan, or is it all like me, just whatever comes across his desk? Or is there actually a plan?
No, he's got a coherent plan.
Which is what?
Well, it's three components, right? The first part of the plan is equal opportunity. The second part of the plan is security, national security, and strengthening our relationship with our allies, weakening our adversaries, maybe even trying to convert our adversaries to allies. Who knows? You may see a unification of the North and South. The Chinese are okay with it now. Their economy is booming. The North was a buffer zone from Mao. Right, they split it at the 53rd parallel, and they created the DMZ because Mao didn't want an economic miracle, a Western-style economic miracle up against his country. But now they don't care. They're the fastest-growing economy, fastest-growing, largest industrial economy in the world, and they're the second largest economy, and they'll eclipse the U.S.'s economy by 2035. So you may see a unification of the North and South. It's possible. So for me, you're asking the right questions. But look at it for what it really is. So there's a plan: security, equal opportunity, and the last piece of this thing, and you better pray for this, is growth. Because if we don't get the growth, you can't. You want to hear something true that your politicians won't tell you? Want to hear something true?
Please.
That they don't pay back the deficits. The deficits don't get paid back. You're running war debt from the Revolutionary War. It gets rolled. The debt from World War II, they never paid it back. It got rolled. Okay, when you were at 105% of debt to GDP, at the end of World War II, we didn't pay it back, we grew the economy. So it shrunk in comparison to the growth in the economy. And so that's the only way a sovereign country can survive is through growth. You look at the entitlement math, we don't get 3% growth, you're going to have to cut back hard on these entitlements. It'll hurt a lot of people. So you got to grow. And the only way you can grow, by the way, is through market forces. Can't grow through socialism. That doesn't work.
Take me through the tax cut. Just the corporate tax rate going from 35 to 21.
How big of a deal is that? So the tax cut is, by and large, a success. There are elements of the tax cut that are putting a hurt on some people. If you live in the state of New York and you lost your SALT deduction, and you got a tax cut at the federal level, you're probably okay, but you could have done a lot better. You're it's a mixed bag there. Where the tax cut is going to be a home run and President Trump is going to keep the House and Senate is because of the move from 35 to 21. That's a 40% reduction in taxes. So the reason why the market boomed is that very smart operators in the market can take a 40% reduction in taxes and sluice it through their income statement and come up with a 50% improvement in profits. Okay, they know how to do that, right? Leveraging all different things. And so when you look at the market, if you're telling me my profits are going up 50%, ergo the market goes up 30. Makes sense. So that's going to be a home run. And by the way, there's millions of people that have gotten wage increases. There's millions of people where living standards have gone up as a result of this. So it's by and large positive.
But historically, isn't that those gains, aren't they going to be like manifested more in share buybacks or dividends for like wealthier people?
Yeah, so that's the left. The left's going to make that argument, and the left will say, well, they're going to keep all the money for themselves and use share buybacks, dividend improvement, capital return to capital. And the left will be right about a portion of that. But here's what they're wrong about, okay? They're wrong about the president, okay? Because the president in my phone, like I got the president's cell phone and his White House residence in my phone, and it's listed under Ted Rose. Because he's Teddy Roosevelt. He's Teddy Roosevelt of our time. And so what he's doing is he's going to use the process of moral suasion and the process of good culture to do what Teddy Roosevelt did at the beginning of the 20th century, where he told the robber barons and the people that were raping and pillaging the land to knock it off. His friend, the journalist Jacob Riis, he went down into the Lower East Side. He showed Teddy the tenements that were collapsing on each other, on the immigrants, the Italian and Irish immigrants that were coming in. And he said, hey, we got to put building codes in here to protect these people. And he went to Henry Ford, he went to J.P. Morgan and Andrew Carnegie. He said, okay, look, you guys are very rich, but we got to cut some pie here for these other people. And so the great economic gift that President Trump has is that he understands the paradox of greed. If I take the entire pizza for myself, I'm going to end up way poorer. Why is that? I'm going to be in a barbed-wired McMansion with security, and my neighbor's going to be starving. If I slice my neighbor into the pie, I'm probably going to be just fine, and they're going to be fine too. Henry Ford was like a terrible dude, apparently a racist, and all these bad things about him, but he understood the economics of the paradox of greed. He said, I'm going to pay my workers enough money so that they can afford the car that they're sitting driving or the car that they're making. I'm going to pay them enough money to live in a nice house, and we have a good school system. This way they won't come at me in my mansion with a pitchfork and a fire stick and try to put my head on a spike, right? And so that's part of the social contract, and Trump understands that better than anybody. So
But isn't he the greediest person in the room? Like, how does he understand?
How is he the greediest person in the room?
I mean, if you look at the
He's not the greediest person in the room. This thing's cost him a couple $2 billion to be the president. But how has he been the greediest person in the room?
I mean, what you read about the self-dealing, like basically foreign governments staying at the Trump Hotel in D.C., like there are things that you would think he would...
I don't know the financials at Trump because it's a private enterprise, but I think they're getting demolished. I mean, they're losing a lot of liberal bar mitzvah money at these hotels. Let me put it to you that way. And a lot of people don't go to these hotels anymore. And he just lost Trump Soho. I think he lost Trump Toronto. You can't tell me that he's making money off the president. I'm just not going to believe it. Okay, now we can paint it that way, and we can position him that way. He's getting crushed because he ran for president, which I predicted.
A couple more questions on the economy and business. It's rare to be with someone that is so well versed in the space. So the stock market's been on an amazing tear since about 2008, I think, after Lehman blew up.
March of 2009.
March of 2009, correctly. So, what are your thoughts? At some point, aren't we due for a correction?
We've had some corrections. We're in a raging bull market for a number of reasons. We were overdepressed in that market. The market sold off too quickly due to the crisis. Reasonably good policy, reasonably good monetary policy pulled us out of that crisis. And so the market, not to bore your listeners or viewers, but the market is really a pricing discount mechanism on the future. And so what the market looks at is where are we going to be in the future. If you're going to put tariffs on steel, the earnings for the economy are going to be lower. It's going to filtrate through the whole economy, so we got to take some money out of the market. The market's weaker on that information. If we're going to cut taxes and we're going to grow the economy, and the president's going to go to Davos and encourage corporations, large and small, from the international corporation base to move to the United States, the market's going to go up. And so at the end of the day, don't look at it like it's moving in absence of fundamentals. If something goes from 6,500 in March of 2009 to 27,000, or let's say 26,000, or today I think it was 24, but just bear with me for a second, and there's earnings and profitability that underpin these numbers, then this number's okay. And right now that's still the case. The future is bright for the market, probably through 2020, because of the stimulative effect of the tax cut is going to offset any rise in interest rates. So I think we're going to be okay.
So you're talking about the future. Is the Trump family like the Kennedys? Are you going to see Ivanka and Junior running for office?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
If you had to bet on one of them running or becoming president in the future, which of the three you think is most likely?
Well, I wouldn't bet against any of them. They're very articulate on television. They're good-looking people. They've got sound reasoning. Boy, they got some life experience now. I mean, it's one thing to be on television with your dad running The Apprentice. It's another thing to be getting flaming arrows shot at you every single day of your life. You know, and you've got 40 to 75,000 Twitter trolls that are lighting up your Twitter feed, and you got, what do they call this thing, shadow banning? I mean, they're all shadow banned on Twitter. You know, you got all this like Stalinistic nonsense going on in these social media companies to slow down conservative thought. So they got the education of their lifetime. So they're well equipped for the job. But, you know, look, I think that has to be a calling. I think that it's, you have to hear, you know, Oprah said it better than anybody. She's like, okay, God, you want me to run for president, man, you better send me a really loud message, and a loud message that I can really hear. And so I think it's got to be a calling. I don't know if they have the calling or not.
What's in your future?
Well, we have to see what happens with my deal. My deal is before CFIUS for 15 months. It's sort of ridiculous. It's fine. If they approve the deal, I'll sell the deal. I'll go work with the acquired company to help grow that business. I'll probably do more TV, and I'll probably do some teaching. And I'm having a lot of fun.
Any politics in your future?
I don't have the calling. So I don't see myself running for politics. I think it's sort of funny. I think the reason why I'm getting hit so hard is people see me as a potential political adversary. So they're creaming me, they're taking out my family, they're trying to disfigure me with all this nonsense. But I mean, I wish I could give them a newsflash. You know, the next time I'm going to be in Washington, I'll probably be visiting the Smithsonian. Okay, I have no interest. I think these people are a bunch of jokers. I mean, you know, there'd be only one way I could go into politics. That is if there was a seismic change in our population where people really did want the truth and they really wanted to fix it. And they wanted people, and they'd have to be, it couldn't just be me. There'd have to be a legion of me. Say, okay, look, we got to really fix the problem. Okay, we're tired of the nonsense. The swamp is like draining us dry. Okay, there's no drain on the swamp except for the drain on the American people into the swamp. You see what I mean? So the American people have to say, okay, we're completely done with this nonsense. We got to hire some people that are going to tell the truth and fix it. And let's see if they do. Trump's trying to, you know.
Final question. You brought up your family. I know that joining Trump's group was hard on your marriage. What's the status there?
This guy's like a character with the euphemisms. Hard on my marriage is a catastrophe. I mean, it was like a full-blown nightmare.
Well, I didn't want to be
harsh. I'll tell you something funny, though, okay? And I told this to the president. I said, I'm having a problem with my wife. She's filed for divorce. I said, the minute we fire Priebus, they're going to drop that story 7 to 10 minutes after. And boom. As soon as Priebus got hit, they dropped the divorce story on me and, you know, the whole problem that I had with the birth and my wife and I and the whole thing. And so it was an unmitigated catastrophe. So listen, I got hit professionally. I got hit personally. I got hit politically. I don't know. How am I doing?
You're fine. You're the rubber ball.
Feel this. This is like real hair.
Real hair. I know. It's great. Okay. Look at that. That's fantastic.
That's like an Italian chia pet. If you're nice to me, I'll let you use it one night before I put it on eBay. Okay?
I joke that before I started the company, I had hair like Fabio. So you know.
Yeah. Well, see, there you go. So I didn't lose it yet, thank God. Although that's a fantastic dye job, right? That's Latin American dictator brown. Okay, because I was using Cuban leader black on TV, but it looked terrible. So now we're going with Latin American dictator brown. And I'm patched up with my wife. You know, I love my wife, and I think she loves me. And we were fighting like dogs. And we were fighting for a lot of different reasons. Some of them are politically based. And I'm going to tell you something. that is very true. And if you got listeners out there or viewers that really want to learn from other people's mistakes or shortcomings, let me tell you one of mine. I got my priorities wrong in 2017. And that's the facts. I oversized my ambition. I oversized those things that are not really as important as things like love of your family and your friends and the commitment to those things that are grounding and solid. And I got my ambition wrong. And it caused the universe to smash me in the mouth. And so I'm up off the canvas, mouth, not a few teeth are missing, but I love my wife and I'm committed to her and I hope I can make it work with her.
Fantastic. Great
Right.
story.
Hey,
Good luck with everything.
Hey, great meeting you.